All right, so thank you for tuning in, chomping at the bit. Kyle Edwards, of course. Hopefully, you're having a great day. Now, as you can tell when you clicked on the episode, I want to talk about the three ring circus that is the Brooklyn Nets. So, if you remember this story, I did an episode, I think a couple of weeks ago, where I said I didn't see Durant going anywhere because Brooklyn would never get what they wanted for Durant. And if that's the case, why would they just let him go for nothing? But we were, constantly updated with, closed door meetings between Durant and ownership and prospective deals that were supposedly out there, which I never believed any of them. We were also given, this whole ultimatum from Durant to the team. And ultimately, where did it all lead to? So I'll talk about that in the episode. And I guess kind of talk about how Nets fans should feel. Now, I'm not a Nets fan. So the implosion of the Nets, the drama with the Nets, it's perfectly fine to me as a Celtics fan. But I'm going to try to speak on this as if I were a Nets fan. So with that, I'll uncover the latest in the saga, the conclusion that we got early on Tuesday, I believe, is when we learned, what's going to happen this season. May shock you, but like I said, if you listened to my episode I did a couple weeks ago, you were prepared for this. And with that, let's go ahead talk about this, hopefully for the last time this off season, because I'm done with this non-story. So, like I said, biggest non-story of the NBA off season finally came to a conclusion when we learned Durant and the Nets are going to move forward together. So, all of this, the Celtics are leaders with the package surrounding Jaylen Brown to the Nets. Toronto's trying to get in the mix. I think the last team was with Memphis a couple of days ago. We're looking to put a deal in front of Brooklyn. I'm sorry, but once again, like I said, the minute I learned Brooklyn asked the Celtics for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I knew they weren't serious, number one. And number two, nothing was going to get done. Because any smart team would never give up top assets for a guy that you didn't know on a week-to-week basis whether he was happy or whether he would be happy with your team or not. And any team that would have traded for him going into this next season, there'd always be questions about if Durant's happy there, or if your team struggles to begin the season, there'd always be talks about, maybe around the trade deadline something can happen. And I don't think any team wanted to deal with that. So when we learned that Durant was going to have this closed door meeting with the ownership, I don't know how it went. I'm not an NBA insider, but I'll talk about that in a little bit in terms of like these NBA insiders that have been following this story all this time. But I assumed the closed door meeting probably went something like this. Durant probably just walked in, sat down, looking at, I guess, Sean Marks or whatever. And Brooklyn probably told him, look, we understand your little trade request, but there's nothing out there for you. And then Durant probably gave them a look like, And Brooklyn probably put it this way, either we work it out and we figure this out together, or unfortunately, you're probably just going to have to sit out and waste, I mean, I don't want. Well, I guess Durant's technically still in his prime. I never understand where the prime years are with athletes, but let's just say he's at the end of his prime. So now he's going to be wasting his final years in his prime holding out because he has 4 years left on his deal and doesn't like the situation. Then from that, it turned into, I'm assuming, Durant saying, all right, cool. You know what? I'll stay. Maybe Durant gave them a list of demands for, making his stay a little bit, more tolerable for him. And we'll see over the next couple of weeks some movement or something. I don't know. But for now, we know Durant's staying. I'm assuming he'll probably be there the next 4 years. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But then, on top of that story, we learned a little bit later on Tuesday that Kyrie Irving's not going anywhere either. So apparently they're just going to run it back from last year. So best case scenario, I guess, for Steve Nash in Brooklyn is that Durant, Irving are happy, number one. Number two, Ben Simmons actually steps on a court and plays meaningful minutes, because we haven't seen that in a while either, and that's going to be a variable all season. So that's 2. And 3, they can get through these next 4 years with Durant and never have to go through anything like this again, where he's demanding trades, delivering ultimatums on firing coaches and stuff. Maybe that's all behind him now, and the next 4 years will be, sunshine and lollipops or whatever. I highly doubt it, because we've kind of seen the person that Durant is now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But like I said, the fact that this story got so much attention, and I was on ESPN earlier and read a story about, how the Nets and Durant move on from this story, and they asked their NBA insiders a question like, who loses out of this whole thing? And a couple of them were like, Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Mikal Bridges, guys whose names that these same insiders were throwing out there in potential deals for Durant. So now they're saying those guys are losing because, those players have to be hurt by hearing their name in trade talks. And I think I'd have to disagree with that, because as this story kept going and going, my full belief was all of these names that were thrown out there were clearly on Brooklyn's side. So, if those teams that those players are on, if their ownership is strong enough, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, for those players, quote unquote, going back to their teams after their name being out there. So that part I don't understand. Also in all of this, the NBA is a business. So names are going to be thrown around all the time. So in a situation like this, I don't think a player can sit there and, be like vindictive towards the organization because their name was thrown out there in a potential trade for a guy. And I'm pretty sure for Siakam, Brown, and guys like that, their names have probably been kicked around before this story, even came out in terms of potential deals with other players. So why would this be any different than that? Now, that's not to say that it may not cause a rift between some of these players and their teams, but I highly doubt it. If there's any loser in all of this, it's clearly either Durant or Sean Marks and, Nets higher ups. Because all this story has shown, NBA players, fans, all that, is that the Nets are a complete mess. They're built around nothing but drama, whether it's Durant with all this. Kyrie Irving's been nothing but drama for years now. Ben Simmons, will he play? Won't he play? Drama. And then, because of Durant and all that, Steve Nash and Sean Marks have been thrown into it, where now next season we're got to wonder, if the Nets go on like a little losing streak or something, are Marks and Nash's jobs in jeopardy? Now, Joe Tsai did come out and say like he's backing his guys, the coach and management like that. So maybe that's not a big part of it. But I know in terms of, NBA TV or ESPN when they do an NBA segment, because the Nets are going to be a focal point this coming season because of this off-season stuff. Everybody's going to be looking to see when or if the trio now of Durant, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons doesn't implode. Do they find a way to make it work? And you can only look at last season as a reason to look at it, that and, have a little countdown going between the three of them. Because remember, when Durant and Kyrie had James Harden join them, everybody assumed that was going to be the big three that was going to dominate the Eastern Conference for the next couple of years. And that trio lasted about 2 weeks before James Harden wanted out again. And, luckily he got out of there, I'm assuming, because I'm sure he would have hated to have been still on that team with all this going on. But now you're swapping out James Harden and whatever drama comes with him for Ben Simmons, where there's plenty of drama with him. If there is one thing you can say, Brooklyn, it will be interesting to watch next season. Well, I guess as long as all three are on the court, because that's no guarantee how many games you're going to get of that. Between Kyrie being Kyrie and his propensity to just miss games for whatever reason, or Ben Simmons, if he does get back to the court, we don't know where he's at mentally. So if he were to play and maybe he's not playing well for a couple of games, who's to say he doesn't completely break down again and take himself off the court, thereby leaving Durant kind of in a situation he was in during the playoffs against the Celtics, where it almost seemed like it was Durant versus the Celtics in that series, because Kyrie basically checked out after game one, and that's when the Celtics put so much attention on Durant that he couldn't hold up. So, like I said, it's the end of the saga for now. We'll have to see once training camp and the regular season starts. Do we get more stories about Durant being unhappy? Which, we'll probably have to see, I guess, around the trade deadline, if that story kind of builds up before that. Or is this something that becomes a story every offseason for the next 4 years? It quite possibly could be just that. Every offseason becomes its own chapter in this book of Kevin Durant's Nets tenure. But for now, it seems like he'll at least be there to start the season next season. And I mean, Nets fans have to hope that these three figure it out, because ultimately, if all three of them are on the court, mentally have bought in, physically are healthy, the Nets should be players in, who comes out of the Eastern Conference next season. I say should be. So much can happen. The Bucks and the Celtics will be there, presumably. I mean, you can never write off Miami. Who else? So do you slot Brooklyn into that top half of the East there? Or if the infighting continues, do they struggle to be a play-in team again next season? Either way, like I said, they will be interesting to watch. And I'm sure they'll be on, primetime network TV a lot next season, because why wouldn't they? But yeah, so I guess as I wrap this episode up, I mean, you have to kind of feel for, I guess, Joe Tsai and Steve Nash, to be honest, dealing with, well, I wouldn't say Ben Simmons is an ego. I don't know. He probably is, but dealing with Durant and Kyrie again next season, I'm sure Steve Nash is, happy at the prospect of what could come from that, but he's got to be pulling some hair out, thinking that he's got to deal with that pairing again next season without real, assurances that both guys are going to be fully committed. I mean, especially after Durant's ultimatum that he wanted Nash fired. How does that work now between those two during a game, with a timeout? If Nash is there addressing the team, drawing up a play, is Durant fully listening to him? Or is Durant just going to do what he wants to do when he's out in the court? So, plenty of questions. I'm sure this will probably be a subject that I touch on during the season. But for now, with the offseason, hopefully this is the last we hear about anything with the Nets. Kind of doubt it, but that's just my hope. So, if you enjoyed this episode, please let me know. You know what you can do. Hit the like button. You can subscribe to the show. Go over to Twitter. Follow me at Chompin' Podcast. Or you can follow me on Instagram. It's just my page, Kyle Edwards. But yeah. So, do you think Durant, I guess, plays out his 4 years on his deal? And about Kyrie Irving, who's been kind of the forgotten guy in all of this, do you think he makes it the season with Brooklyn and gets a new deal in the offseason to stay in Brooklyn, maybe to coincide with Durant's years? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. So, like I said, let me know, comment section or Twitter, wherever. But thanks again, and as I always say, be safe out there. God bless. Enjoy your day. I'm out. Have a good one.